Oh shit. Here we go again.
Good evening, everyone. I can hardly even say this without laughing. Um, good evening, everyone. How you doing? So today we're going to talk about EAFC as an esport and the pro, yeah, I put that in air quotes, the pro scene that comes with it. It's really, really embarrassing for a variety of reasons, and we're going to talk about that today. So we have our trusty notepad behind us as usual, and we're basically going to follow the notes I made for this video. Now, first, right, full disclosure, I'm not afraid to admit it. The only reason why it even dawned on me to pay any attention to this past weekend's games at all is because there's, in-game rewards for it. And, all of us, I think, who play are in some way or another addicted to some degree to those sweet, sweet packs. Now, the sad reality is that more packs equals the meta, right? That's the truth of this game. That's what this game partially comes down to. Now, of course, there is a skill gap, although the skill gap is an extremely broken one. But that's why we all want more packs, right? That's why tens of thousands of people tune in when they wouldn't otherwise to this quote unquote esport. I figured if I'm going to tune in anyways casually, I should at least pay some attention to how these players are playing and what are the differences in the gameplay and how their games are playing out compared to how the games are playing out, in weekend league rivals in the competitive level that I'm at, basically. I was curious. And I made two main observations. So the first one is that I was shocked to see how rarely these players were using skill moves. And I think that's a really bad sign for the game. And I'll explain why. Now, there are really only two main ways to create a logical skill gap in a game. You basically have a tactical skill gap where you are trying to impose, tactical superiority over your opponent, or a mechanical skill gap where you are just able to react faster and input commands and react to sort of moment to moment changes in the game better than your opponent. Really, it comes down to a tactical difference and a sort of mechanical difference between players. And when I saw how rarely it was that these players were using most skill moves at all, it became apparent to me that there's not really that much of a mechanical difference in the game, especially at the highest level. I think it's a horrible sign because the way this game should operate is you have skill moves, players with skill moves that range from obviously, 2 to 5 star skill moves, right? One key factor in the game should be one player's ability to successfully perform skill moves that create even a tiny advantage for them in certain moments in that game, in that competition. And the reason why these players are not really ever using skill moves is because they are hardly ever effective. There are situations where they're effective, but those situations are few and far between. Now, what's an example where they are effective? Well, if you're in the box and you're at a certain angle, you could perform an elastico or a reverse elastico and give yourself a bit of a better opportunity in that situation. But beyond very, very, very few situations like that, there's no creativity in how these people play this game. They are practically like a group of robots that are abusing the mechanics more than other people. And also, which we're going to talk about later, you're going to see in the notes behind me here. We're going to get to this in points 4 and 5. There are also people who are willing to spend thousands of dollars on their ultimate team and inherently have a huge advantage purely based on that as well. And that does need to be addressed here today. We are going to have to talk about that. Okay. Now, in points 3A and 3B behind me, actually in 3C, this was the other main observation I made. And this is even worse than the first one. okay? In only those 2 hours, okay? This is how bad this is. I'm getting like a voice crack from this. The number of times that the announcers had to address insane instances of RNG. I mean, they're not referring it to it as RNG, but you have keepers doing ridiculous things, ridiculous animations, garbage goals being scored because keepers aren't occasionally making huge errors. Defenders sort of occasionally their AI sort of shuts off temporarily, even though they're generally overpowered. The problem is RNG, okay, where ball bounces a certain way for no good reason, or certain collisions happen and it favors one player way more than the other. Things that just shouldn't be in the game are abundant in this game. And it was completely insane. It was completely insane the frequency that these things were happening at. And I have a bit of an analogy, okay? I was thinking about this when I was watching this. Imagine, I've never played, Fortnite, but imagine in a mega popular franchise, in a first person shooter or like a battle royale, imagine in the pro scene, the person winning or losing is dictated by RNG and randomness, like the way it happens in this game. For example, there are no mechanics in first person shooters where guns randomly jam. Okay. There are also no mechanics, to the best of my knowledge, in first person shooters where you may be looking down sight at a target and you have maybe like a red dot on the target, and then the bullets that are dispersed are actually far away from that line of sight and that target. In this game, you could be making a 6-yard pass where the defender is off to the side, pretty decently away from the player you're passing with and the player you're passing to. There could be defenders that are not blocking that line of sight, and you could be making a basic 6-yard pass that every professional soccer player, football player can make. And for some crazy reason, there's a percentage of time, and it's more than a small percentage of time, the player, this professional gold card with like 85 to 95 passing, is giving it right away to the opponent. There's no good reason. There's no logic behind it. There is no justification for it. It just happens. That's one of the main reasons that this video game, as far as an esport goes, is a complete joke. It's an embarrassment for the people who are playing at that level. It's an embarrassment for the company, right? It's just an embarrassment for everyone involved. It's an embarrassment for the announcers. Like, I can't even imagine being in a situation where I have to, choose to get paid to have to address, like, live in a pro scene, quote unquote, the atrocious frequency at which RNG is dictating how games are playing out. And then there's one last topic I want to cover here because it ties into all this. And that is points number 4 and 5. Okay. Electronic Arts is referring to these players that get to this stage as professionals. And I think it's absurd because most of these people that are at this stage, first of all, aren't making enough money to pay for the travel and the team that they spent to get there in the first place. And basically, the gripe I have with that term in this space is that you aren't a pro. You're not a professional at something. I don't really care what it is. You're not really a professional at something if you can't even make a minimal living from the income of performing in that job. Okay? So let me explain. If you spend, say, $5,000 or $10,000 in your profession, quote unquote, in your line of work or in the thing that you're trying to profit from. But in the calendar year in which you spent $5,000 to $10,000 or more, if you only made maybe $500 to $1,000, maybe you made only 10% of your investment back. So you're actually at a significant loss. Okay. You aren't a professional. A professional is someone who makes a living doing what they do, makes money, profits doing what they do. If you make $500, but it costs you $5,000 to make that $500 and that's it for the year, you are not a professional. So EA shouldn't call, this is not a pro scene. These people aren't pros. They're not. And it's actually mainly because of EA too, by the way, because first of all, EA doesn't pay for these people's teams. These people pay for their own teams, and they are truly paying thousands of dollars out of their own pockets. Okay, admittedly. Also, another issue with EA is that of all popular games, as far as I'm aware, EA, as far as a prize pool, offers by far the smallest prize pool for a company of their size, period. Now, if you have information on that is more detailed than mine, please feel free to share that. If you have examples that are more atrocious than this one with EA in EAFC, please feel free to chime in. I'm actually curious, genuinely curious about that, because I don't think it exists, but it might, right? Now, if it does exist, it doesn't make this company any better. But basically, EA is notorious for offering crumbs as a prize pool for these individuals to fight over. Meanwhile, the total cost of this group of players' teams is in the six figures easily. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros. When you add them all together, it might even be, depending on the size of the group we're referring to here, I mean, it's in the millions. And EA, there is not a multi-million-dollar prize pool. So as a whole, the group of quote unquote pros in this space are not professionals. They cannot serve, most of them could not survive on this income or profit in the real world. Maybe they live, at home with family or something, or with each other or whatever, I don't know, and are subsidized by, who knows, family or something they do for work or something other people do for work. I don't know everyone's situation, right? But the majority of them are not actually professionals. All they've done is they are very good at the game. Don't get me wrong. They are still the best group of players that play this game. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not saying that, right? They may still be better than practically everyone you've ever played at this game. That may be true. But part of what makes them that good is that they've spent thousands of dollars each on the team that they play with, which gives them a significant in-game advantage, which is also another huge flaw with anyone pretending that an esport exists for EAFC. When you can pay to win and when you can pay for in-game advantages, there is no esport. It's not an esport, period. Okay? That's not how other games work. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I spent a couple hours this weekend tuning into these games. I was curious, and this is what I observed, and these are my thoughts about it. So let me know what you think. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourself. And yeah, hopefully you don't take this game too seriously. I think that's one of the main take-home messages of, why I'm documenting my thoughts on things like this. Because the reality is, yes, a lot of people have quit, and I'm very glad about that. I think that's the appropriate thing. EA as a company deserves to lose a player base. They also deserve to lose profit, plain and simple. However that happens is, how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But there are a lot of us who still, for some reasons or others, still pay attention to the game and play it. And who knows how long that'll last as well. But as long as I'm around and as long as you're around this game, I'm going to talk about it. And if you're interested, I'm glad that you're, listening and chiming in as well. So, you know, hit me up in the comments and we will talk there, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.